The Old World Tabletop only has 10 factions compared to Warhammer 3's 24, but there are some units in those 10 factions that aren't in Warhammer 3 yet, so here's 5 of them that would actually be good and beneficial to the factions, although I'm not including the upcoming DLC with units we already know are coming, like the Lothan Skycutter for the High Elves. But let's kick it off with those short guys.
Short!
Eins.
So the first unit for the dwarfs could be a pretty impactful one. Imperial dwarfs. These little fellas, as you can see, not rocking so much armor, but they do have spears, which is unusual for a dwarf. They can apparently double up and be in the Empire roster as well, which is why they're dressed a bit more like Empire soldiers, a bit more mercenary. They would be a great addition for the dwarfs because they've never had this kind of anti-large protection. You've always had Slayers, of course, but Slayers are very squishy, they're not very good at taking charges to the face, and they're very expensive. But these little guys, you can imagine them with a bonus versus large, armor piercing, and a charge defense, all while being much lower in the armor than the regular dwarfs though, maybe like 40, and just generally being a lower tier unit, but really good for just defending those flanks, something the dwarfs can have trouble with. So yeah, I'd like to see this unit come to the Dwarven roster. It would really help them out with one of their biggest weaknesses, which is mobility, of course, and getting flanked all the time, without being something that's going to be OP or is going to completely eradicate that weakness. It's just going to help them out a bit, in the same way that Graveguard Halberds were added to the Vampire roster and helped them with large units, one of their big weaknesses. Feels like this unit could be a nice one for the Dwarfs to do the same.
Zwei.
Next, one for the Empire. How about some heavy infantry for a goddamn change? The Teutogen Guard warriors, or however the hell you pronounce it. These would be a really nice addition for the Empire because their infantry generally isn't that great. And I know human factions and their infantry are supposed to kinda suck, but in Warhammer 3 I think it's a bit of a problem because it makes those factions so easy to run through. Although maybe it does in Tabletop as well, I don't know. But this would be really nice to see for the Empire, even if it's maybe just a regiment of renown. And as they are the personal bodyguard of Ulrich, a high priest, they might even be cool as an aspiring champion type unit where there's only like 16 of them in a unit, but they're just really strong individual boys. High armor, great melee stats, great leadership. Maybe they can give a leadership buff because that's one of the things, always letting the Empire frontline down. Or, you know, you could just make them into a regular elite infantry and have like 90 of them and put them up there with the Chosen. So yeah, 2 options of how you could apply this unit. Maybe the first one's better where they're just like a regiment of renown like aspiring champions. Then they're not completely changing the faction. If you made them so you could have a front line of these, like 4 or 5 units, then it does kind of really change up the Empire. Maybe a little too much. But yeah, a unit like this could really spice up the Empire frontline game. Alternatively, there are Empire Imperial Ogres as well, so maybe they could be an option instead. But again, they could bring the same issues as the Guard if they're a bit too strong. Maybe they could be low tier, prone to rampage or something. But I think the Tooty Boy Guard Warriors would be a much cooler addition.
Drei.
Next, one for a faction that hasn't had anything for a long old time, the Tomb Kings. And how about a Necrolith Bone Dragon? The model here is ridden by a Lich Priest, so they could be a mount, but also maybe just their own single entity. They can apparently take unnatural flight, so they can fly despite only bony wings, and still have a breath attack despite not having a throat. But this would be a really nice addition for the Tomb Kings. Yes, they have some single entities already, but none of them can fly. Their only flying unit is Carrion, who are obviously not that great. So this would be an actually useful addition for the Tomb Kings, allowing them to make a play for air superiority sometimes, and it can also give a nice new mount option to certain lords and heroes. Maybe Archon, he's only got a boring old horse and a boring old chariot. How about a heckin' dragon for him? Although I don't know if that conflicts with lore or anything, but when has Warhammer 3 ever cared that much about that? He seems to be the only Tomb King's Lord without a unique mount, or I guess just the Lich Priests could be able to ride them, as on the model. But yeah, this would be a very nice addition for the Tomb Kings, change up their air game a little bit, and gives a faction that hasn't had anything for a long old time a pretty tasty, bony treat.
Vier.
Next one for the Farmyard Boys, the Beastmen. And how about a new Lord option, the Centigor Lord? This will bring a nice speedy Lord option, something the Beastmen don't really have outside of flying Malagor, and one that could keep up with Centigors or support them, maybe come with some buffs for Centigors, so you can finally have that Centigor army that's actually somewhat decent. Centigor units aren't great, but if something could buff them up with a little more toughness, they could go a long way. And this Lord in the tabletop can use different weapons, an axe, a sword, a large pick, a club, and has the option of a shield. The shield and axe or sword would maybe be the best option so he doesn't get melted in 10 seconds. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, tabletop nerds, I think he has the option of heavy armor as well. so maybe it'd be good to just make him tougher than the regular Centigor anyway. Although maybe if he doesn't seem like an appealing lord, he could be a great hero option instead if you had a Centigor hero, or maybe just the current Centigor units need to be improved. The normal version could be armor piercing, for example. They do have spears after all, and then the current great weapon version, which is armor piercing, could have a bonus versus large as well, so they're an anti-large cavalry. But you can also have a javelin version of Centigors in the tabletop, so maybe that would be cool as an anti-large option instead. But yeah, Centigor Lord, Centigor Hero, maybe some new Centigor Javelins, whatever. I'd be happy with any of them personally, but I guess the Beastmen does get quite a lot of new stuff these days. They always get something from the DLC, right? They got the Cockatrice, they got the Zangors, they got the Zinch Centigors, I suppose, they got the Corngors. But hey, Centigors need love too.
5th.
And last and least, the French. Bretonia. They need some good infantry as well. Same reasons as the Empire. Their infantry is considerably worse, I think, than the Empire or Cathay, the other human factions. And again, human factions are supposed to suck, but I think Bretonia sucks a little bit too much. So how about some Foot Knights of the Realm? I've mentioned these before in a video. I think they'd be a really nice addition. They don't have to be like chosen level of power or anything. Currently, Bretonia's best infantry is Foot Squires, and they're what, like 650, 700 cost or something? So if these were like 1,000 cost, they just had a good bit of armor, a good bit of leadership, something that could hold the front line reasonably for Bretonia, that would be enough. And I know some of you are going to go,
Oh, but look, you got paladins and guerrillas.
and well, yeah, those are fine for buffs, but +8 leadership and a bit of damage resistance doesn't really stop them getting ran through by even tier 3 units. Plus, you need at least 2 of them to cover your entire front line, and that's 2 slots out of your army that could be used for Grail Knights or something. So yeah, just give them some semi-decent infantry so that they can stand up to stuff just a little bit better. And again, I get you don't want to completely change up the landscape of the human factions, but you know, Kislev exists with pretty strong infantry, so why can't the others have a little bit as well? And so yeah, those are 5 units I think would be pretty cool to see in the game, or some adjustments to current units like with the Centigors, but of course the old world tabletop is still growing. Some popular factions still aren't in there yet, like Kislev. So who knows what else might get added to the old world universe, but I think what CA have been doing this year, adding a new unit here and there with patches, is very nice, like the Vampire Count's Halberds, the Nangao Grenadiers, and some of these have been pretty big game changers, so it would be nice to see that come in for more factions, and I think a bunch of the units I've listed here do have that potential, so it would be nice to see more of them get added in, just a little unit here and there with the update alongside the DLCs maybe. We do have to wonder how many more factions are going to get full DLC packs. And I guess whether we'll ever see another full faction come to the game or not. Let's go Nippon! But there's also the Ind and Koresh options, and we've got the land there on the map, right, to be used. Will it ever get used? Hopefully so. I mean, they've created factions out of nothing before, right? Norska kind of didn't exist. The Vampire Coast didn't really exist. CA just kind of made them up, obviously alongside Games Workshop, but would be cool to see more factions, more units, for however long Total War Warhammer has left. But anyway, I ramble on. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Do check out the Patreon and YouTube memberships if you're interested in some exclusive lovely rewards. Otherwise, I'll see you in the future.